I'm Rob LaCouria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Aya Cash, who co-stars as Stormfront in Amazon's blockbuster superhero action satire, The Boys. Aya, season 2 completely blew me away. It exceeded expectations, and a lot of that had to do with bringing Stormfront on to shake things up. I really believe that. How much input did you have in developing the character at all?
I had zero input. That's not totally true, but the writers write the role and we just play them. Eric is particularly open though to feedback. So like there were a few little things where I was like, oh, it'd be interesting if we did this or a little. I mean, there was one I had a couple pitches that didn't make it in. Like I wanted her to always have Fanta because that was the drink of the Nazis, as like a little wink to what was happening. It was basically so Coke could still sell to Nazi Germany without getting in trouble with their brand. They had Fanta. But of course there's already a Fresca thing in the season, so that didn't make it. But he was open to having conversations about those sort of little additive things. And when there was a couple times where I was like, wow, I think I love what we're doing here, but I feel like there's maybe something missing in this. Could we add something? And then the writers would come up with a great line based on the pitch that I had done. There's also another pitch that didn't make it in that I don't think I'm ever allowed to talk about.
Okay, I'll ask you later.
It was in the sex scene, and
Oh, okay.
very sad that it didn't happen.
We're going to go there a little later, I hope, if we have time. The reason why I ask, and I don't want to sound like cloying or cliche, but the casting to me seemed really spot on, like as if it was meant to be you, because you've got a certain voice in the way that many of your characters, I can, when you're on the screen, I'm like, okay, I'm ready for a really fun Aya Cash performance. I'm just wondering though, did they, I mean, when you were cast, surely they wrote her so that it would suit the way you were going to perform her.
I don't know. I mean, you never know, like if a sort of role gets written on you, or it seems like it gets written on you because you play the role, and then nobody can imagine anybody else. I did audition for this. This wasn't an offer. I don't think that Eric had seen You're the Worst, so it was based off of my audition and our conversation that I got cast. And then, yeah, so I'm not sure how much, which came first, chicken or egg kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just a
Yeah,
complete
the
coincidence.
character came first.
Yeah. So I started out with a preconceived idea about who Stormfront was because I'm not into the source content or anything like that. I just watched the show, and I thought, oh, she's gonna be fun, sarcastic, rebellious, yay! And then by episode 3, I was like, holy shit, she is evil. She's the real deal. So were you excited about coming in as the chief antagonist on the season?
Yeah, it was really, I thought it would just be a really interesting challenge, not to be, capital A actor, but you always want to play people that you don't immediately connect with, because that's the fun, is trying to find that connection and find like what are the points, what are the deep dark things in me that I can use. It's not like, I'm obviously, I'm not a Nazi. I'm not I don't think that anything she does is good, and it's not about justification, but more about like, times in my life where I've been manipulative, or I've felt fear, and that has caused me to lash out in some way, or to behave in a way that is not necessarily within uh, what I would like to, how I would like to behave. So that was exciting to me, and also it's a superhero show, and I feel like bad guys get to do the real fun stuff.
Absolutely. And you've got amazing one-liners. You're really quite funny in the show, but there are moments like I think there's twice that I can remember where she's lustfully whispering, "Open your eyes, I want to see the light go out," while she's gripping someone's head. And I just wonder, like, when you get to do some really dark stuff like that, there's other examples as well. I mean, is that immensely satisfying? Is it nerve-wracking? Like, what side of the pendulum are you on when it comes to stuff like that?
I think it's really fun. The things that aren't fun are are the racial slurs. I mean, that's not there's no part of me that's like, oh, this is enjoyable. It's gross. You're saying it to a real human being in front of you, and so that part feels bad. The rest of the stuff, uh, even killing, is it's like being in a horror movie. You're not scared in the movie. What the audience sees is so different than what we feel on the day. So you're like trying to place your hand in on a fake head and squash it in a certain way so the blood goes this way, not that. I mean, it's so technical and so
Yeah.
silly. And you sort of see how the sausage gets made. It's not the same feeling as like an audience member watching it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I never think of that because I'm always in the moment, obviously. I asked Erin the same question not long ago, and I was wondering what you think, because for a show called The Boys, obviously women had a really central role in season two, with with Starlight, Stormfront, Maeve, Kimiko, and Ashley, and Becca, and so forth. It started off really ironically with the girls get it done stuff, but by the end, I also found it immensely satisfying to have the women beating Stormfront up with Peach's Boys Want to Be Her playing on the soundtrack. What were your thoughts on how Eric Kripke kind of was skewering that whole, girl power stuff at the beginning, but by the end, it actually, the season did revolve around the women.
I think it's great. I don't think you could skewer it if you were continuing to perpetrate it. You can't. So he better give the girls some really interesting meaty stuff if he's going to send up people putting women out in front as sort of a shell, but then no power behind the scenes. So I thought it was really exciting. Yeah, I mean, I think there are really fantastic female roles on this, and I think this season, particularly just because she had less last season, but Kimiko, Karen's character, I thought her story was really fascinating, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. I think Eric has admitted one thing about season 3, which is something about her loving old Hollywood musicals, and that really that tickles me.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. The other part of the show, I mean, there's a few, but the next thing that I wanted to talk about was the way in which it skewers celebrity culture, and the vapid, grotesque junkets that I'm sure you've had to suffer through. In fact, watching that made me cringe so desperately, because I just thought, geez, when I started out, was I asking stupid questions about what are you wearing and what kind of, do you like waffles? But I was also thinking, you seem to be a kind of person who's quite allergic to that vapid, ridiculous celebrity nonsense. So how did you feel about really having a crack at it on this show?
Yeah, it's really fun. I mean, I don't think I'm not I'm a sort of journeyman actor in my mind, not a celebrity.
Yeah.
So I think enough rejection keeps you away from that. I think like if I was young and hot and coming out, like maybe I would be like, let me tell you about my, I love clothes. I don't know if I avoided it because I'm somehow like morally above it, or if it's just, this is my life. But it's really fun to send up. I do think it's bizarre that we hold up celebrities as having answers to anything, or that they somehow have even sometimes character stuff, or even in this world, like in a junket world, sometimes I'll get asked questions that I haven't even thought about because the fans are going, well, I saw the poster on the wall and that was a signifier, right? From episode 2. And that meant that in episode 6 we were going to see, and I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But yeah, the idea that like celebrities would have something more important to say about the world we live in or life than anyone else, I think is pretty dumb. But we all need gossip. I mean, humans are social people, and so I get that there is also a certain amount of like, okay, we're out of high school, so who can we talk about? And that's people in the public eye.
True, that is true. And we all kind of feed off it in some way or another for work, like myself, or and for publicity. It's all
Yeah,
intertwined.
I'm doing publicity. I'm not, being like, no, I won't. I'm too,
Yeah,
you know.
but and we're not talking about Freud and like the end of the world. We're talking about your show, but what the show does is that it really perfectly skewers things like celebrity culture. It also skewers power and the way power corrupts people. I think better than any other show on telly, to be completely honest. Even a lot of the political shows. This one has obviously a lot of uh, parallels with what was going on politically in America over the last few years. And it's interesting that you probably get a lot of feedback from people who didn't really see it that way and kind of were coming at it from a perspective that, that it kind of mirrored their own political philosophy. Did you find a lot of that feedback?
That people felt like the boys mirrored their political philosophy?
Yeah, that it wasn't as necessary. It wasn't skewering that right-wing patriotic propaganda type things that we were seeing on Fox News, but it was actually propagating it. Did you ever find that you were getting that?
I think what I found really interesting was that it proves confirmation bias to me, this show,
Yeah.
because people saw what they already believed in this show often. So I know that there are people on the right who saw it as a takedown of leftist wokeness, and Stormfront's reveal of Nazi is that. And then I saw on the left people looking at Stormfront as this sort of new alt-right, cute face of hatred where we just don't use the word Nazi.
Mm.
And I thought that was really interesting because I actually didn't think it was possible to see the first. And it's just very clear to me that we are always looking for things to confirm our own worldviews, and not as open to having our minds changed. Shocking. I know, shocking revelation here.
Yeah, it is a shocking revelation that we're all in our bubble and take such comfort by having people on TV tell us things that we actually believe in. But The Boys does a really good job of that, I think. It really does. Speaking more superficially now, and you touched on it earlier, but so we need to go there. Were you completely psyched about adding levitating sex scenes and laser eye masochism with Anthony Starr to your list of scenes that you've played in your career so far?
I mean, I never imagined that I would be floating in a destroyed apartment, making sweet love to Homelander. um, yeah, no, definitely not on my bucket list, but having done it, 2 thumbs up, highly recommend. It was actually more comfortable than most sex scenes because there was so much technical and fight stuff. And we're both harnessed up and I'm in shorts. I've talked about the merkin before. Like, it was so ridiculous. There's no real, it wasn't, sometimes when you're just in pasties and like a stick-on thong. I hope it's okay to talk about this.
Absolutely. Fascinating.
But when you do that, it feels awkward. You're basically nude in front of a crew and trusting that they're going to honor your nudity right or not to show the bits that they've agreed not to. But on this, we were so fully covered.
Yeah.
And it was so silly. It was actually much more comfortable to do this sex scene than almost any sex scene that I did on You're the Worst.
Okay, that's good to know. That never occurred to me because it looked exhausting. I was doing my back out just watching you guys do that. So more power to you. Also, I was thinking, the end for Stormfront. If you haven't seen this, by the way, switch this off. Go and watch the show, then come back. But you are limbless, burnt to a crisp. You're muttering stuff in German. You've got like one eye. I know you say that you see how the sausage is made, but can you talk us through briefly how much was involved in getting you into that position? Because it was kind of so bad that it was almost ridiculously funny, but also, I almost slightly felt sorry for the bad Nazi, which is very, unsettling.
Yeah. Don't feel sorry for her. Yes. So that was a 6.5 hour prosthetic. So it's a lot of practical, which is amazing. I actually found that The Boys was much more practical than I thought. I didn't do any green screen work. We did a lot of, harnessed flying. which was really cool, and I actually really enjoy. And then, so yeah, it's a 6.5 hour prosthetic that they put on, and they paint you. And then I had gray sleeves on so that they could then, VFX could take out my arms and legs. And there's a really cool mock-up. Our VFX guy, Stefan Fleet, is amazing, and he really shows you everything. If you ever go to his Instagram, like he has like a little model of me this big as a burnt to a crisp paperweight. um, so it was all the practical, and then they do the VFX on top of it to sort of have me smoking, and the obviously the limbs gone, and all that. And then they took that off, and then the eye gag where I get stabbed in the eye is a different prosthetic as well, which took about 2.5 hours.
It sounds really fun, but also quite exhausting. You don't have a lot of experience with that kind of performance, do you? Like, was it challenging to deliver, the authenticity of the role that you're playing, as well as having all this stuff going on at the same time?
Well, in some ways it's easier because most of my face is not my face. So, there's only so much acting you can do with one eye. But and obviously the German was very scary because I got it, 5 or 6 days before. And You're the Worst, I got a big monologue in Spanish as well. I think something about me says learn a new language in 5 days.
Yeah.
Um, but it was also fun, and it might not be perfect, but it was fun to try to do that. I like those sort of challenges, where you have to learn a new skill. I just wish I had had more time.
Yeah. So now that all is said and done and you've finished up with the boys, I can't imagine Stormfront will be back. But when you look back on your time on the show, what will be your main takeaway? What did you learn, or what did you most appreciate from being on the set and being part of that show?
I mean, a job is only as good as its people, and there's just really great people on that show. I think there's a 14 deep series regular role. I think 14 people are series regulars on that show. It's crazy. And to have that many people and to have everyone get along is pretty mind-blowing. And the crew is also really great. I also love Toronto. I was like, I could live here in a heartbeat. It's so I just had such an enjoyable experience with all those folks. In terms of the role, I think it's actually given me so much more than I ever would have expected, especially it coming out in 2020. I'm certainly not done with my learning, and to play this kind of role in this kind of moment and to hear the feedback, positive and negative, has given me so much to think about. And that feels like an amazing thing to happen from an acting role, that has not happened in that way before. I think Gretchen's depression was also something very close to me and to people around me, and so that conversation felt different than this one. That I had to both look at myself and what I am putting out in the world and how people are reacting to it, and I thought that that's just such a great thing for a role to give you.
Yeah, that is absolutely. Well, thanks a lot for your time today, and really great work on season 2. It was so enjoyable and so satisfying to watch that whole arc of Stormfront. And good luck for your next project.
Thank you so much.